Hello, we'll get started as soon as a few more people are joining us. But welcome to everyone who is entering this space today and this evening. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to be teaching. I don't like the word teaching. It sounds really didactic. Basically welcoming you into this really exciting experience and the next 90 minutes, which are going to be your 90 minutes and hopefully transform your experience in moving into industry. So I will wait another minute, but before I start, let me just go through some little housekeeping notes, since we've got quite a few people in the room now. So now you're here, get this phone and turn it off or put it on mute, right? Put it down, make sure, you might be on your phone, and fair enough, if not, put it down. But just make sure you minimize your distractions. We want to make sure that the next 90 minutes are yours. It's your protected time to really engage and absorb in what we're about to share with you. There will be a lot of content, right? So there will be a lot to take in. So what I don't want is you kind of making loads of notes and scribbling furiously. It's designed to be rewatched. So remember, you will be getting a recording. I just really want you to listen, participate in the interactive bits and just absorb, basically, because that will then help you to reflect and act hopefully later on. I want to make sure you can ask questions. You know, there is a lot to cover, but if there's anything that you feel like you desperately wanted to ask, please simply ask it in the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom in the bar. Please don't ask questions specifically in the chat room, because it means that we may not get to it or we might miss it. So any specific questions to us, Q&A box, please. And as I said, just absorb, like, you're here. That's like the first step, right? The fact that you're here. And thank you so much for taking your time to invest in yourself, in your move to career, to industry. So just to remind you, this masterclass is not about spoon feeding you. As I said, I'm introducing you to some fundamental concepts that you can use to create your own structure and framework to develop a sustainable career and industry that you love. And it's designed to get you to where you want to be in industry faster. So I know that as doctors, we're used to being told exactly what to do and how to get there and the time it takes to get there. But the reality is the world of work outside of medicine does not have a strict structure or framework to adhere to, and it's constantly changing. Therefore, it's essential that you create your own North Star that nobody else can see but you in this process. So you don't get lost and you don't get overwhelmed, because there is a lot of overwhelm out there. So once you've got your own framework, you can mold yourself, reinvent yourself, and remain indispensable. So this is all about creating a category of one for yourself. So we're doctors, we are highly dispensable, depending on your specialty, I have to say. But the reality is we are highly dispensable. And I won't go into it, that's one of the reasons why we're in the place we are, where a lot of us are looking to diversify, developing portfolio careers, looking to leave medicine entirely because of how we're treated and when don't feel like we're being valued in what we're doing. So that's it. So moving on to the content. So let's start off with some introductions. I am Abena. I am an occupational health physician and founder and CEO of Medic Footprints. I'm bringing this presentation to you with a background of obviously a doctor, but I've got both NHS and industry experience as a doctor, but also working at a strategic level, working through Medic Footprints, supporting doctors and advising clients, our client partners that we work with, on best practice in recruiting doctors. I am a marketing and PR self-styled guru. A few kind of like achievements under my belt. I was the first woman, one of the first women in the cohort for NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Scheme you may be familiar with. And I am a mother of 2 kids, 2 and under. And I love bouldering, I love traveling, there's lots of things I love to do, but the reason why I'm telling you all of that is because I'm very ambitious, I've got a lot to do, I've got a lot under my plate, and this is why I really found myself really having to focus on important things and develop my career in a certain way so I could enjoy all of the other stuff outside of medicine. And this is my youngest, who is now 4 months old, so I relatively recently had a baby. So again, like, this is all about lifestyle. It's all about enjoying everything else around us beyond our work as doctors. Anyway, I'm going to pass on to Ola.
Thank you, Avena. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Ola Abbas. I'm the Founders Associate here at Medic Footprints. My background in healthcare is a consultant in intensive care and acute medicine, though very recently I have decided there is more to life than being working in the NHS in my clinical career. So I have decided to expand and to go beyond that and basically set myself up as a business. I've developed a business over the last 3 years that is mainly in the travel industry, and now I'm broadening my business experience. I've also recently authored a book which hit international bestseller, and to me that is one of my recent star achievements, I would say, because I've always labeled myself as a doctor. I've always put myself in that category of like, I am good for that clinical medicine practice, but I didn't think that I would be excellent in other avenues and in other ventures. But again, when I focused on how to do them, I found a lot of transferable skills that I could put across to that. I absolutely adore and love traveling, 37 countries and counting. I'm going to tick the whole 196. Hopefully very soon, and to do that I needed something flexible, so hence where I am. Thank you, Avena. I'll hand over back to you.
Awesome. So again, just a reminder for those of you who've just joined us, we want you to have minimal distraction. So if you're driving in the car, please stop driving. That has happened before. We have seen people driving in some of these webinars. Just make sure that you ask questions if there's something that we haven't covered, and the best way to do that is put that in the Q&A box. Depending on how many questions we have, some of them may be asked live, some of them may be asked direct. I'm answered by Ola whilst I'm talking, and we will have kind of question breaks as well. And just remember, we don't want you to like be overwhelmed with this. It's designed for you to be able to rewatch it at your own convenience, because there will be a lot to take in, and it requires a bit of kind of absorption, so to speak. Okay, let's get on with this. Right, so as you know, familiarity of some of the challenges that we face when moving to industry. So compared to medicine, there is a significant lack of structure and approach. And also the world of industry is huge, and it's confusing to navigate it. If you're someone that's been applying for multiple jobs and really struggling to get an interview, this is for you. If you've been told, because I know lots of doctors have been told this, that in order to get into industry, you need to take a massive pay cut or work for free, that's not the case. This is for you. I know some of you, like myself, at the early stages, you're developing a business. You want to start your own business, whether that's healthcare related or non-healthcare related, which is an amazing feat. I love entrepreneurship. It really has nurtured my soul, and it's an ongoing challenge. But one of the biggest challenges is finding clients that will pay, and also taking a huge risk for yourself financially when you're working for yourself. So this is for you if you're that person. As I said before, like, one of the issues that we face in being doctors is that we are doctors. We are not business people unless you specifically go into the business end of healthcare. And so one of the challenges that doctors face when going to industry is lacking that commercial mindset. Even if you're going into to industry as a doctor, it's still really important to have that commercial mindset. And finally, a lot of us are experiencing burnout, some directly from the pandemic, some just from general normal work. And what we don't want is for you to be moving into another role, especially if you're already experiencing well-being concerns and you're already burnt out, and another role could make it worse. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. An overview of Medic Footprint. So we are a global platform that is by doctors for doctors. And we connect doctors with the best in diverse and alternative career opportunities. We're currently on a mission to connect 1 million doctors with the best opportunities by 2030, which is a big feat, but a very important global challenge, because what we're experiencing now in the UK is a problem in pretty much every country out there. So in our community list, we have over 191 countries represented on our community list. That was not deliberate. Like when I started Medic Footprints in 2014, it was always about the UK. And then we realized that we were having doctors from across the world. This is how we birthed our Malaysia branch of Medic Footprints. This is how several other companies in other countries similar to us popped up. So this is a global issue. And I'll tell you a bit more about the vision, which is if we tackle supporting doctors moving into careers that they love, they will be able to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues. Because as doctors, we're a huge skill set, we're talented, but we're in roles, many of us are in roles where we cannot really realize our potential. So we want to help as many doctors do that as possible, because it makes the world a better place, simply spoken. So I talked to you about burnout. So we're all about sustainability in moving careers. So we also have a B2B, so business to business arm. So we work with companies as a specialist doctor recruitment partner. So we've worked with a whole range of different companies, different sizes, and we work at a marketing level, but also at a strategic deep level. So if you are any of those people that I mentioned before, you're actively applying for jobs, you're a service-based solopreneur, and particularly if you're looking for a 6-figure income. So the reason why I put this in isn't because I want to make sure that all doctors have enough money to buy a yacht. It's really because I talked to you about sustainability. So none of us went into medicine for the money, right? It's not about the money. It's because we genuinely want to help people. But the reality is, if you aim for a higher income, it gives you more flexibility in how you live, in how you work. You're more likely to be able to work part-time. You can retire early. It gives you options. So that's why we are looking for doctors. This is for you if you are looking for a higher income. And you can absolutely command that at various stages in your career. You do not need to be senior consultant professor to command a high level income. We want to help you save your time in moving to industry. We want to help you avoid mistakes that are easily made. We want you to gain more confidence in the move, because that's one of the things, the take homes that we get from myself. I had that challenge. Ola had that challenge. Many doctors have the challenge, which is like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have that confidence. It reminds me of when I was an F2 in neuro ITU and I was put on call with intubated patients. I never intubated a patient before. The consultant wasn't on site. If I can do that as an F2, you can do this by moving into industry. It's one of the things that we're so used to doing. But it is to help you bolster that confidence, and also to help you, as I mentioned, to get paid your worth. So we're going to cover the reasons why doctors fail to sell themselves, what selling yourself actually means and why it's an essential skill to learn at this point, core elements you need to focus on it, and how to leverage your doctor brand as an asset. And what I'm covering today, even though it's deeper than what I may have discussed on the podcast and on the stuff you may have read, there's a whole lot of more stuff to learn, right? And obviously we cannot cover everything you need to know in 90 minutes. But I'm going to cover as much as we can. And as I mentioned before, there's something that we're not covering and you've got a really burning question, like we just have one now, then yes, go and ask that question. This is what we're here for. There's no such thing as a silly question here, right? So why move now? So we mentioned the BMA stats. So it means that more and more doctors are looking for alternative careers. They're looking to move to industry. And so now there's going to be greater competition as a doctor, especially if you are looking for an employed job. But also there are more doctors setting up businesses now. So how are you going to stand out amongst the competition. So as I said, in order to learn this now, it's important that you learn it to give yourself more options and realize that actually by removing yourself from the scarcity mindset, you will be able to make better choices. The reality is there are unlimited opportunities in industry, unlimited, right? The ones that exist currently that are advertised, the ones that are created for you, and the ones that you create for yourself, right? They're there. So you can be picky as long as you make sure you're choosing the right sustainable opportunity for yourself. And we do not want you to settle for anything, right? We want you to choose or create or go for the best opportunities that are out there that will help you thrive and flourish, right? So what is the general opportunity? So a lot of doctors go for the limitation by any means. So management consultancy in itself, I mean, high valuation, the MCA, which is like the Union for Management Consultants, 10,000 new jobs recently announced in the next 3 years, 20% increase in growth. So management consultancy, a lot of opportunities there. Pharma, 1.4 trillion in revenue in 2021. Are we surprised? No, we're not. HealthTech, 51 billion investments received in 2022. HealthTech is still growing. It's healthcare. That's why I call it healthcare. That's what HealthTech is. It's just tech-enabled healthcare. Health and wellness, particularly, that's a really popular industry. It includes quite a lot. 6.9 trillion expected to grow by 2025. EdTech, you know, online courses like Coursera and you name it, 123.4 billion, and that's still growing. And coaching, I know some of you are looking to go into coaching. The valuation of coaching is huge and expected to reach 20 billion. And this is just representative of what is available, but we know that doctors are going to a lot of other sectors. So, hey, you're making the right choice, basically, moving forward. So why doctors fail to sell themselves? Before I go on to that, I've got a question that actually I will address later on. Just wanted to make sure it was nothing about the first section I said. So why doctors fail to sell themselves? So we're going to start with a case study on this, looking particularly at the factors so that you can identify whether you have this issue in particular. So we've got a case study. Jay Preet is a surgeon who's always excelled. She experienced burnout and she decides that medicine isn't for her and she's desperate to leave her job. She's applied for multiple roles in HealthTech, advertised online, but yet to get an interview despite numerous applications. She signs up for an MSc in digital health. She feels that her CV is lacking in that. So if she gets that MSc, she will be able to get jobs, right? And she was told by her peers that she should work for free or take a pay cut. So I want you to take 30 seconds for a minute, just think or write some comments in the chat box. What factors in that case study do you feel may indicate that she might struggle to sell herself, that contributes to the whole kind of challenge of selling herself? I mean, what's your thoughts, Ola?
I think this is it's a really good example of so many doctors that we see. I think she's in a position where she's got high potential. She's got, obviously she's very competitive, being an excellent surgeon, but she is at a point where she is in burnout already. So she's left it potentially too late to be able to make that jump, so to speak. And she's now at a point where she's desperate. And when you're desperate, you don't necessarily make the right choices. There is lack of clarity in her approach. There is lack of confidence as well, as like feeling that she needs to have more qualifications in order to prove her worth or to prove her employability, so to speak. And also that popular but not so popular opinion of having to take that pay cut when you are moving out of your current role and going into industry. I think it gets promoted too much, but without truth to back it up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Ola. And Anil has also commented, burnout, important not to come across as a disgruntled medic Absolutely. That's very, very common. And MSc, we know, I talk about qualification junkies, us doctors. It's useful. It can be useful. And I've talked about situations where you can get a very good return on investment. However, it's not always a necessity. And I'm sure that's not where she's specifically lacking. And he's also said, Anil's also said, experience trumps qualifications. If anyone's got any other ideas, please put that in the chat box as well. But we're just going to go through the case study because for time purposes. So we've talked about IO is it me, but my chat box is disabled. I'm not sure, IO. I'm not sure. That's a tech question, but we do have people that have. Let's just double check. Would you be able to check for me, Ola? I think it's a global issue. Do you want to check how we can change those settings just so we can make sure the chat is enabled? Is that okay? Awesome. So once we get that sorted, so look, someone's put something in chat. Anyway, we'll get that sorted. So Jaypreet, she's a high achiever, right? And she's always done really well. We talked about burnout. We talked about she's already desperate. So the reality is, in her desperation, that's probably coming across in the way that she communicates, written and in person, right? And no one likes desperate reality. She's applying to HealthTech. So one thing I say about HealthTech is that it's so big, it's healthcare. It's like saying, I'm going to go and apply for healthcare. So what she really needs to do is look at really targeting a specific area. So she needs more focus in that area. She signs up for an MSc in digital health. As Anil quite rightly said, it might help, but it's not the be all and end all. And it's not the CV that's the real core element to this. We're looking at the whole picture. CV is a passport, and I'll talk about that briefly later. And also, she's been told, given the mindset that she'd be working for free, which does not have to be the case at all, because she already has what it takes to really succeed in industry. So just another quick case study. Nido is a GP. He's setting up a coaching business on the side. He spends a lot of time setting up a limited company and website and social media channels. He gets a few inquiries, however, none of them actually convert to a new client. As a result, he starts to offer his services for free and hopes that his clients will convert further down the line. So a year later, he's no closer to his lucrative business and getting a side income, so moving away from psychiatry. So he's struggling to do both. GP, typo there. Struggling to do both, becomes exhausted and needs some time off work. And the last bit of that was actually me for a period of time where I was doing full-time business, full-time OCMED equals burnout. Please do not be me. And I've seen lots of doctors do it. It's so common. So few thoughts on that before I actually go into the points there. What factors in Nido's case study indicates that he might be struggling to either sell himself, or business is all about selling yourself. There's business, but there's actually selling yourself. So what is he struggling with? Chat box. Is it working now? It is not working. Okay.
I'm trying to sort out the chat box. I don't know. I can see it and I can send messages out to everyone.
Okay. Well, I'd love to see.
I think I fixed it.
Great. Try the chat box again, everyone. If not, Q&A box. Working now. Hey, tech issue fix. Thank you for your patience. But anyway, instead of fixed, let's fix this guy. What's his challenges? What indicates that he might be struggling? Ola, have you got any comments? What else, people? Business for free. Thank you, Anil. Selling services for free, almost undermining. Absolutely. Offering free service, Viga. Yeah. Offering his skills for free despite having them. Yes. Get it, Kasim? Lack of confidence because no one converted. Yeah. Confidence is a big thing. And especially if you're running a business, it is it's hard, man. It's like, especially when you're on your own, it's extra hard because you're like kind of talking to a wall half the time and you don't know whether it's you or whatever. Ashling, lack of confidence in his identity, juggling two roles that's similar but haven't necessarily gelled, misunderstanding his skills. Yeah. Caroline, if you offer for free, people don't value you. Yes. Really, really great comments, guys. I really appreciate that. So Nido, yeah, so one of the first things is he set up a coaching business, right? And so as I mentioned before, niching or being very specific on what you offer. So I mentioned to you about HealthTech, the same thing is about coaching. Coaching, you could coach anything. You could literally coach anything. So what he needs to be looking at is really niching down into coaching a very specific subset of people, because then he'll be able to focus on his target market and create a service that he knows his target market really needs. So understanding the pain points for that. Spends a lot of time setting up his stuff. So as doctors, we're good at doing stuff. We're implementers. We like to do stuff. And so when I speak to particularly doctors who are actually either applying for jobs or setting up their businesses, are like, oh, I want to work on my CV, I want to work on my LinkedIn, I'm doing this and that. But actually, have you stepped back and really looked at the package of you and what actually you're communicating to other people? It's quite difficult to do that, and it's uncomfortable, and I'll talk about that later. But he's doing a lot of stuff but not focusing on what he needs to focus on, which is selling. He needs to focus on the selling, which doesn't necessarily need a website or social media. It just requires strategy, right? He's getting few inquiries, however, none of them actually convert. We've talked about that. Offering his services for free. So listen, free isn't necessarily bad as long as it's part of a strategy that then leads to conversion. I think that's a take home from that perspective. So free, but as Caroline said, sometimes if you offer something for free, it's not necessarily valued. So it's just something to be aware of, but it's okay if it's part of a strategy that leads to conversion. And obviously it led to burnout. So in summary, these are the factors that we've already talked about. So making sure, so doctors that don't have a unique selling point, so how do they stand out amongst other doctors? Didn't have a real focus of interest. There is a lack of clarity in how they communicate who they are, what they do, how they can add value to companies they're working with, or add value to a potential consumer. They don't necessarily leverage the transferable skills they have as a doctor, especially if they're applying to non-medical roles. And they tend to not really know who they're applying for, especially if they're making loads of applications. And it's really important, I'll take you through this, why it's so important to know who you're focusing on when you are applying as part of selling yourself. And obviously in the center of that, it is about looking after yourself and making sure you don't go and apply for jobs whilst you're burnt out, right? And so we talked about this in practice. I won't go into detail in this, but because we've already covered it in the case study, but this is what it can look like. These are the signs, these are the symptoms, right? So do we have any particular questions? I think we did have a question before, didn't we? And that's now disappeared from the Q&A box. Did you answer that already?
No, I felt it was more for something to answer on the live. How did you overcome the fear of being a solopreneur, and how did you silence the voices that said you were being reckless with your career?
So the fear of being a solopreneur. I think this is actually targeted at me specifically. It wasn't clear from the question. I think I was quite naive when I went into business. I was like, let's just do something for myself. And actually, I think that naivety really helped me, because had I known what it involved, I may not have done it, basically. But if you're someone that knows the challenges, like real challenges, how do you overcome the fear? I think I would sit down and look at the areas that you particularly lack confidence in and get help. Get lots of help. Get lots of support from your immediate network, so your family and friends, but also, I mean, I'll talk about this, but get the support that you need really to strengthen your resolve in getting to your goal, your mission, and your vision in being the solopreneur. So the why are you becoming one? That's generally the advice I give. And the question about, being reckless in your career, that silence the voice about being reckless. How would you answer that? How would you silence the voice that said you were being reckless with your career? a really good question. Ola.
Oh, is it for me?
Yes, I'm
You
sure
don't. I was just going to type an answer and say that you never overcome the fear. You feel the fear and you go forward with it. The ones of us who have created a business and who have stepped out of the traditional conveyor belt, we still have fear, but we have a courage bigger than that because we see the vision and we see the end point. And you don't get to silence that voice. You get to learn how to live with it, because we all, at us, every level brings a new devil. That's what I say. Whenever you level up in business and you think that, yeah, I've got it now, I've got the confidence, I've got the skills, I own it. You want to level up again, you will get that voice, and then you train yourself as you go along, and that's with the help of coaches, mentors, networks, supportive people around you, to believe in your strengths, to believe that you have conquered the levels before and you can move forward even more.
Great answer. This is just an example of a doctor that we've supported in Medic Footprints who's ended up in Google Health. It wasn't one step to Google Health, it was several steps, but basically he made it and he's doing really well, and I'm sure that he'll move on to amazing other careers, and we're looking actually doing something really exciting with Dylan. So yeah, so moving on to what selling yourself actually means. So literally, if you Google this, it is to persuade someone of the merits of you, right? The merits of you. So this is why it's really important to be clear on you when you're selling yourself, right? And we talk about humble bragging, which is like being proud of your achievements, being able to communicate your achievements, but just not going over the top, but also making sure that you are not the world's greatest secret. And that's a kind of marketing thing. And the other point is in exchange for money. So as doctors, we don't talk about money. Like, money's not really in our vocabulary, our professional vocabulary, right? We come from an environment where we're told what we will be paid. Like, we don't ask for it. We just get told this is what you're worth, right? So we don't know how to communicate or understand our value. So especially if you're moving into industry where you actually have an opportunity to state your values, state your worth, it can be really uncomfortable. It can be really, really challenging. But it's important that we just really kind of recognize what selling actually is. And this is why it's important to really invest in learning more about that money language when it comes to talking about it, so you're more comfortable talking about it. So how do we sell ourselves? There are multiple ways of selling yourself, especially when you're looking at getting a job or setting up your business or selling to clients, selling to consumers. And so I'm going to teach you a simple structure that I use to help you get clarity on how you can effectively sell yourself, which can be used for all of these vehicles. Some of you may be expecting I'm going to do a 90-minute tutorial on LinkedIn or CV or interview. I'm not going to do that. We will cover that a little bit, but the reality is this is what you need as a foundation to sell yourself using any modality, right? That's more important than those three things I've just mentioned. So very simple. We start with who you are not for, and what you do. And on top of that, if you've got the 3 W's, you also need to be very consistent in how you actually communicate that and how you show up. So talking about knowing yourself. So again, we're doctors. That is, most people aren't self-aware. Like 10 to 15% of us are truly self-aware. It's very difficult to be fully self-aware, right? It's not an easy thing to do, but it's really important to invest in your time doing it. As doctors, we really haven't had enough time or opportunity to get to know ourselves between the study, the practice, the on-calls, the exams, you name it. And I personally believe that part of this is because, like, a contributory factor towards burnout and well-being issues is the fact that we don't really know ourselves, because we've been kind of on a treadmill, on a rat race for our whole careers. And if we knew ourselves better and established boundaries within our lives to protect ourselves, we may not have experienced the stress and lack of confidence we have when just saying no to things that we don't agree with, or things that we don't feel that we can do, or where we've actually reached our limit, but it could still be stretched a little bit more. Yes, it can be stretched, but should it be stretched? right? So how do you get to know yourself better to make well-founded decisions in your career? How do you do that? And we talk about taking regular protected time for yourself, meditation, therapy, coaching. It's really important to find out for yourself what works for you, right? So you can use this to come to a conclusion of how you want to present yourself to employers or clients or customers. And if you're not clear on how you want to do that, or you're undecided, just make sure you take time to experiment, right? So we're not going to do this exercise now, but I really want to make sure that you do this exercise, right? So Google yourself. How many of you, please put this in the chat box, how many of you know what Google is saying about you today? Do you know, Ola? What's Google saying about you?
It will Google will bring up my social media profiles, my LinkedIn profile, bring up my website, my features in media. So I have been very conscious about showing Google what I want people to see when they key in my name.
Right. Okay. So that's great. You are controlling your narrative, right? So the reality is your digital footprint is a key source of information for your employers, for your clients. They will use that. They will put more emphasis on that than your CV, or even your LinkedIn in some cases. So the take home is whatever you find, you need to be happy with it. You need to feel like it's representative of you, whether you've put it there or the top 10 slides, or whether it, you may have contributed towards it. My advice to you is do not let anyone else control it, because if you do not control your narrative, someone else will, and that will be easily found by the people you are looking to sell to, right? So, and it's important to kind of really do an audit on your Google, like as frequently as you can, because obviously these things change and things come up. But in industry, they will be Googling you. They will be Googling you. So, moving on to, so that's a summary of really making sure you're clear on who you are, right? And so who are you for? So remember, there are approximately 8 billion people in this world, right? And so there is a lot of opportunity within that and a lot of people to serve. So being as specific as possible will help you create more focus in your career search, gain more clarity on what you're looking for, get more referrals because people will know what you do, help you confidently turn down offers. So that could be clients or work. For example, I know a lot of people that take jobs that they intuitively would not have taken if it wasn't like, actually, I just need it for the money, or I just need to get any job right now. We don't want you saying yes to bad money or bad work or bad environments or bad people. We don't want that, right? So this is why it's important to be very clear on your values. For example, you may know me not only as founder of Medic Footprints, but also an occupational health physician, right? The reality is there aren't that many occupational health physicians. I'm one of very few. And when I did it, I came up with my microphone and said, hey, I'm an OHP. And I've sent a lot of people to OH, right? And a lot of people are drawn to me because of my OH background and the fact that I've been kind of promoting the specialty quite a lot. So people who are drawn to you for who you are, and especially if you're more specific to them, because they know that you are for them and nobody else, right? And you're more better placed to serve them. For example, Medic Footprints is for doctors by doctors. We are only for doctors. You can't believe the number of times people have been, so are you going to do other healthcare professionals? Are you going to do pharmacists? Are you going to do nurses? There's nothing wrong with those groups, but I'm really committed to the narrative and community of doctors, and that will never change. That will never change. And so realistically, the more you're for everyone and you have a very broad market, the more dispensable you are and the more competition you're going to have, right? And your value goes down. Example of that, we're easy replacers, doctors. We are dispensable. We're dispensable. And that's one of the reasons why we're experiencing what we're experiencing with regards to strikes and our value. So if you go for a job, know the employer, know the people, know the strategy, and know their values, and just be curious. right? So I want you to spend a minute of your time just now on this exercise. So what people do you serve in what you do? So either you're doing it now, or you're looking to do it, or you're thinking about doing it. Write down, what people do you serve in what you do? And why is this important to you? So the why is hugely important in you pursuing your goal, whether it's to get a job, to build a career in industry, to create a business. Why is it? Do you have a backstory? Most people will have a backstory when they're starting something. I mean, I've got this long backstory I'm not going to go into now of how I came to start Medic Footprints. But Ola, do you have a backstory that you can reliably share?
Indeed, I do. I have the scars, the story and the scars, and it's probably a bit too long to share as well. But for those of you who know me already from my social media channels, I did go through a wave of burnout throughout my job as COVID, and due to multitude of factors. And when I came out of it, I vowed that I wouldn't let another doctor go through what I went through if I had the ability to help them. So my why is that if I can change one more doctor's life, then I have put this world in a whole better place. And that's me in a nutshell. I'll spare you a lot of details.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we can hear more about that another time, I'm sure. But for those of you with us and doing this exercise, I'd love you to just type briefly in the chat box, what people do you serve in what you are doing? What people do you serve in what you are doing? So, for example, if you are a coach, you could be serving a specific subgroup of people. If you are, I don't know, what other kind of, we've had HealthTech. So some people might be specifically looking to get into femtech, and they are serving women with gynecological issues. It's very quiet in the chat box right now. Got Kasim saying people wanting to optimize their health and well-being, physical and mental, ideally within HealthTech. Thank you, Kasim. Women in healthcare. Thank you. Caroline. Ola says, I help medics intensify their wealth and well-being by connecting them to high-end opportunities. IO, professionals start their own thing. Interesting. I would say that sounds a little too broad. I'd love to hear more about that, IO. Can you tell me a little bit more? I'm curious. Anil, pharmaceutical company, HCPs, supporting NHS and privately, third parties, and ultimately patients. Interesting. Is that okay? Interesting. I have lots of questions about that, but I'm not going to go into that. But thank you. But you get the gist. It's really important to be specific as possible. And also, who do you not serve? So I think that's really important because, again, I'll use my medical profession story. As I said, there were lots of people that said you should be serving other healthcare professionals, and there was a time where I kind of like said, "Oh, everyone welcome," and you know, pharmacists and vets and everything. But the reality is, it was, you know, everything we were doing was just for doctors. It was aimed at doctors. It was serving doctors, and I just eventually, unashamedly said, "We're just doing doctors, medical doctors. That's it. That's it." And it's really important to have those boundaries because, again, people know who you're for and who you're not for. And it, again, helps you to focus and be true to the community or the target market that you truly are investing yourself in. So, yeah. Finally, what do you do? Be clear and concise about this with a focus on how what you do transforms outcome for people. Right? Company or people that you're serving, right? So thank you very much, IO, for actually clarifying. He said, predominantly mindset, believing that they can as well, equipping them with strategies and plugging them into networks that will help them turn ideas into profitable business. Thank you very much for sharing that. So another exercise. So we're talking about what you actually do and the transformational outcome. So again, take a minute of your time to think about what you do better than most people, right? Not just what you do, but how is it that you're better? What is your unfair advantage, right, with the competition with other people, or that you're genuinely passionate about if you're not doing it now, right? So as an example, I'm passionate about helping doctors build sustainable alternative careers. In building sustainable careers, they are able to work on their own terms and are free to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues, right? So I'll give you a minute just to think about that, but I'll just go and move on to some of the other slides whilst we do that. So just to recap, we've looked at the 3 W's: who you are, what you do, and who you are for and not for, and being consistent. And remember, why we're doing this is to help you gain clarity and help others gain clarity. And that's a crucial part of selling yourself, because a confused mind cannot make decisions. So imagine you're in an interview, no one really understands what you're talking about. They're not going to go for you. They're going to go for the person they understood, right? They will not buy from you if they don't understand what you're selling and they're not clear on what you're selling, because there'll be something else that's easier to understand and buy. And they won't refer to you. So you go, because word of mouth referrals are the best form of marketing, just talking about who you are with your family and friends. So, but they'll only do that if they remember what you do. I remember my dad, he's told me what he does. And this is back in the day. He'd tell me what he did, but he wouldn't tell me in a very succinct way. So I couldn't really tell anyone what he did. And I still couldn't even look back and I understood well, I know he was in business. I don't know what he did. And so I wasn't able to really reliably tell anyone. That's just an example, right? I wasn't referring my dad to anyone, but it's like, what do you easily remember, right? And so I've met a lot of doctors who lack clarity in that, and that is just a key reason why they struggle to uncover opportunities, because the best opportunities are uncovered through word of mouth referrals. So I'm going to help you build your clarity statement. So Anil's already kind of got started on this. He told me he's passionate about bridging the arms of E. What's that? Bridging the arms of E. Maybe. I don't know. Could you clarify, Anil, on the arms of E? So I think he'd finished. So I'm passionate about bridging the arms of R&D, marketing, and commercial teams. Okay, fine. Within the pharma industry, to influence the development of medicines that will influence the healthcare of tomorrow. Remarkable. Thank you. Vega, I practice what I preach. Love cooking and exercising. I think that brilliant. Working mums, Vega. Love that. I'm a working mum. Shall I buy from you? Hopefully I will. I could be your next client, Vega. I could be your next client. So take some time. Yes. Take some time to build your clarity statement. So I help ideal client customer to do the outcome of what I offer by what I offer, right? And if you don't know what to do, these are examples of clarity statements when you're not fully doing it yet. So take another minute and get your clarity statement in. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, make sure it's imperfect and just write something in the chat box. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be wrong. I just want to hear something from you. I want to see you create something and articulate it. Conciseness is key here, people. Conciseness is key. So, for example, I help doctors sustainably develop a career they love in industry through transformational mentoring. So, Ola, what's your clarity statement again?
I help medics intensify their wealth and well-being by connecting them to high-end opportunities.
Nice. I want to see some clarity statements before I move on to the next slide. I want to see one. Yes. It doesn't have to be perfect. I am an experienced doctor and wish to support colleagues in their lives at work and at home. Thank you so much, Caroline. I really appreciate you getting in there and seizing that opportunity to share that with us. So yeah, that's awesome. Brilliant. I'm a psychiatrist who is passionate about helping people in mental health crisis with mental health difficulties regain some control over how they feel and their circumstances. So brilliant. Brilliant, Gianna. Kasim, how do we say I do XYZ when we are unsure how to get our foot in the door? Feels a little false to create an identity without the experience. That's a really good point, actually, Kasim. And some of this is confidence, but the reality is we have to start from somewhere, right? And this is why if you aren't clear on what you do, or you don't feel like you have enough to talk about, it's still okay to be really passionate about something. I'm going to tell you about, some of you may have heard of Keith Grimes. He's a GP who basically built a brand on just being passionate about VR. He wasn't a VR specialist. He didn't really know all the technical elements of it. He was just ultra curious. And in building his brand, he just got known as the VR guy. And he's a GP, right? He's a GP. And then he got a job at Babylon. And then he went into product, like a product director at Babylon. And now he's just this like amazing tech doctor guru person. And you know, he didn't start off with any expertise in VR. So it's okay just to be curious and passionate about what, and like geeky about what you're interested in, and be able to like communicate that, because what employers particularly look for is real, like, why are you motivated to work from us? Like, why you? At the end of the day, not everyone comes to a company with like a fully made I'm it. A lot of people go in with I just really buy into what you're doing, and I want to make sure 100% will help you on that journey. I prefer that person than I have all these technical skills and I don't really give a crap about what you're doing, right? It does make a difference. I mean, what do you think, Ola?
Yes, definitely. It starts from your interest and from your passion, and it can start with the curiosity of knowing more about what you want to do. And as you are being curious, that is how you learn more about it. That's how you connect with the appropriate networks, and that's how you become the person that is known for that.
Thank you so much. A few more. Viga, I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor, passionate about healthy living to prevent, treat, and reverse chronic diseases using simple lifestyle interventions and improve the overall health and well-being to empower individuals to be the best you can be. Yes, Viga. Yes, love it. Harish, I'm a doctor who wants to maximize high performance in sports players. So you were a doctor who, yeah, no, that's great, Harish. Thank you. Awesome. I love it. I'm excited for that as well. So using your clarity statement, you can apply that to all of the selling vehicles. It's a great foundation for that. Once you're clear on who you are and what you really want to get behind and your values, you will have more confidence in communicating that on your applications, in your interviews, to your friends, on the website, referrals, advertising, everything. This is where it starts, right? So I know that you come here maybe to say, how do I do my LinkedIn? Okay, so my top tips, right, guy, for LinkedIn, I am going to talk about LinkedIn. It's a great networking platform to find people that you don't know. It's not the only way to find people you don't know, but this is one of the easiest ways, right? So make sure your profile is complete. Make sure you have your clarity statement in the header and you use that. Make sure the keywords that you want to be found for. So if someone's like searching for someone that does what you do, are they going to find you with your LinkedIn profile? There's a number of times I've seen doctors saying, I want to do femtech, but femtech is nowhere in their profile. You are not going to be found, right? So make sure those words are clearly sprinkled around your profile and you're updating it regularly. A clear call to action on how to contact you as well. Make sure that you use LinkedIn as a great platform to engage and connect. And I've done multiple podcasts relating to these, so check out Disrupting Doctors' Careers. There's so many episodes I've talked about this. And last week I actually did one on LinkedIn, a simple 3-step strategy on how to get opportunities on LinkedIn when you don't have any time, like me. Top tips for your CV. A lot of people say medical CV, long, take it down to 2 pages. I say take it down to 1 page. This is a communication exercise, right? 1 page, guys, 1 page. If you can do 1 page well, you're doing really well, and recruiters will love you for it. They will love you, right? So even when I see 2-page CVs, like most of the stuff you need is on the first page anyway. The second page is just guff. So 1 page, right? Make sure it's easy to skim read, like minimal technical jargon. So remember, a lot of non-medical, non-technical people are going to be reading it. And just instead of listing all of your jobs, make sure you use a few high-quality examples of what the employer wants to see. Remember, the CV, it's a passport. It's not the be-all and end-all. And I usually say it's the last thing you need to really focus on working on. Don't spend loads of time on it. Interview, how to really prepare. As I mentioned to you before, by the time you get to an interview, you should have really done most of your homework on the employer, who you're talking to, ideally. And so you should know the larger mission and vision for the company and the strategy. If you don't know the strategy, ask for the strategy. Asking for these things helps you stand out. That is selling yourself, because you are saying, I am curious. I want to know more beneath the surface of your job description, which, by the way, in most cases, job descriptions are relatively poor quality, and they're not representative of what they're actually looking for. That's an insider tip from me. and it's true. It is 100% true. So yeah, remember that. And when you're going for an interview, remember, it is 2-way. 50-50. It's about relationships. You are relating to the person and the company. They are relating to you. If you don't like the people, if you don't like the company, move on. So it's a test on both sides. It's not just a one-way system. So you need to be interviewing them. And in doing that, you need to be asking some really good questions. Asking great questions helps you sell yourself. Be concise, be specific. You talk about some power words that you can use. Again, I'm not going to go into this, but things like build, coordinate, develop, deliver, innovative, negotiated, I planned, I supervised. Like that really kind of lands well with a lot of, because it means that you sound confident. Basically, you come across as confident. And remember, it's all about, a lot more interviews in industry are informal these days. They're formal, but they're done informally, right? So it's all about relationships and making sure that you connect to your values. So a lot of the clients we've worked with will literally just have a values-based interview. So they're not interested in the technical skills. It's more like, actually, how will you fit into the company? Do you get our culture? Will you fit? Will you work well with our team? Because that translates to success more so than just your technical element. Okay. And if you're running a business, if you're a solopreneur, pretend that you're doing your history whenever you do a sales call, like say like a medical history. So you're being really curious. You're trying to get beneath the surface of the bonnet of the car, beyond the surface of the patient, and you're really trying to get to the bottom of why are they here and what the main challenge, what are their pain points. Because by doing that, you will be able to come up with the right prescription for them. All right. So this is an anonymized example, but when this person nailed his clarity statement, I'm just going to cough a little. When he nailed his clarity statement, he was able to focus on opportunities he wanted rather than spreading himself thinly when going for applications. Opportunities started coming to him. And for someone who's busy and wants a sustainable career, that's the better way of uncovering opportunities, by positioning yourself so you're easy to get hold of and the right people are coming to you saying, hey, I've got this opportunity for you. Talk about clarity statements, referrals, word of mouth, and just being found for the right things. So I did a podcast with Harriet today. This is an example of another doctor. Sorry, I'm coughing again. Hold on. Example of another doctor who basically was unclear on how she could marry health tech and entrepreneurship, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. And then recently did her second raise for a obesity platform. And actually, I've done an interview with her. That should actually be on our website tomorrow, the next couple of days. So if you're an MF Premium member, you can actually view the video of that in a couple of days. If you're not, it will be released on our podcast probably in a month or so. So what other questions do we get, Ola, before I move on? to leveraging your doctor brand? I mean, other questions that we got. So I know Ola bravely called some of the people who are joining our masterclass in the last few days. So what kind of themes did we get from people who were joining today?
I definitely had the pleasure of talking to some of our attendees over the last few days, and I wish that I had the ability to call all of them. But some of the questions, they actually fall into similar themes, and one of them is how do I attract the right opportunities and the right clients? So you have covered some of that, but also questions on where do I actually start? What's my starting point in moving out of the NHS into an alternative career?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. A lot of people kind of are concerned about where do I start, because it's a overwhelmed city, right? And the reality is finding opportunities, the first place to start, friends and family. I always say friends and family, but reality is the best place to start, as I mentioned before, is with you. You've got to be clear on who you are and what you're trying to do and what you're offering out. Once you're clear on that, start having conversations, start experimenting, start just putting yourself out there. When I first started with Medic Footprint, I just told anyone who really wanted to listen. And by doing that, I uncovered a whole gamut of opportunities, meeting doctors who had kept it quiet for years that they were doing something on the side because it was seen as, it was taboo to talk about it at work. And it was seen as a negative and that you're not committed to medicine if you were doing anything else beyond medicine. So we've got a question from Gianna. I'm curious about approaching companies to advertise myself, which they haven't advertised. Do you think there is a right way to do this? Is there anything you would advise against doing? For example, sending an email with CV attached and general summary of who you are, what you do. Okay, great question, Gianna. I'm going to actually pass this on to Ola because I've talked a lot already.
We did actually briefly discuss this, isn't it? How do you uncover an opportunity that is not actually advertised? And majority of the good opportunities in industry, they get created for you. They do not get advertised. They don't make it onto LinkedIn. And the way to uncover them, the simplest, quickest route, is by building a network that is on purpose with intent. So using the basic principles that Abena has discussed earlier in this masterclass of defining who you are, what you are, who you are for, who you are not for, and what do you do, and having that statement repeated over and over, and people coming across it whenever they meet you or interact with you, whether that is on social media or in person, and building a network of people in that area of focus of your niche. So when you're saying, I want to go, for example, into health tech is a massive industry. You need to narrow down and focus into which area exactly or which subdomain of health tech you want to go into, and network with those people, because getting to know those people and having them know what you do very clearly will uncover those opportunities for you. So I personally wouldn't spend my time sending emails, especially with CVs and attachments. It will not get read. They won't go through it. They don't have the time to go through it. It's not that they are being dismissive. It's just that they don't have the time to go through it. And you can catch their attention. You can catch recruiters, or you can catch the big fish in companies who you would want them to create a role for you. You can catch their attention by branding yourself appropriately, as we've been discussing in this masterclass.
I mean, great advice. And just to add to that, as I mentioned, the 3 W's. And being consistent and persistent is key. So as we mentioned, like a lot of people, we're all busy. You know, you're busy, they're busy, we're all busy, right? And so if you message someone, say, like, one of the greatest fears that we have on LinkedIn is that, like, we're bothering people. Like, people are there to network, right? They're there to be bothered, right? And in reality is there's a lot of spam. I get a lot of spam from just really unrelated crap on LinkedIn, to be honest. But there's a lot of times when people message me and I might not be able to get back to them, and then I forget, and then they get back to me again and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, so, or it might take a few more times, but it doesn't mean that I'm not interested. It just means that I'm just being dragged in a billion different ways. So it's just really important that to stay top of mind. This is about being at the forefront of their mind. Building relationships is just to be persistent. So message, email. I'm like, there's a difference between persistence and spamming, which I go into, but just being there on a kind of comfortable, regular basis. Doesn't have to be transactional, doesn't have to be I'm looking for a job. It could be, hey, I've got a question about this, or I saw what you're doing, that was amazing, how can I support this more, etc. Do not send out a CV unless someone specifically asks for it. That is the best advice I can give you. Do not send out a CV unless someone specifically asks for it. And just let me tell you, they will look at your CV for 6 seconds. So if you are sending something, 1-page CV, that can be read. So yeah, and hopefully that did answer your question. Cyber, please put a question in the Q&A box. I would love to answer that question. But we've got another question from Kasim before I move on. Has Medic Footprints considered a specific health-related co-founder matching platform similar to that of the Y Combinator, but for doctors looking to start something up, but with someone else? Perhaps the pool wouldn't be big enough, but could be international, just an idea. The pool is big enough. I guess there's the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Scheme already that kind of does that. But I guess it's not as, commercial in its being, that it's NHS. There are other platforms, but I mean, that's not a bad idea for a startup, if that's something you're thinking of doing, Kasim. But no, I think the pool is 100% big enough. I mean, it's not just doctors in the UK, there's doctors all over the world. There's over 12, 13, 14 million doctors, right? And how many of those are entrepreneurs? A lot. Doctors make great entrepreneurs with the right kind of support. So yeah, great idea. Cyber is trying to arrange a taste is something you'd recommend. If so, how would you go about doing that? Depends on what the taste is for, and what shadowing is for, and what context. So I need a little bit of more information. But a taster is basically you want to get to know the company, right? And there's different ways of getting to know the company. Shadowing is quite difficult these days. A lot of companies do work remotely as well, and so sometimes it's just about getting a feel through the conversations that you have. But that is not a bad thing to do. That's something that you feel would work for you, and that's something that can be organized. But it's not really that common unless you're... I'm just trying to think, how many times have I come across doctors who end up just shadowing in a industry situation? I'm not sure if I've come across them at all. That's just me. I don't know, Ola.
No, I've not come across it that frequently. And a question for me to you, Cyber, is why do you feel you need to do a taster? Is it because you're undecided on where you want to go to, or is it because you feel that you won't find the role that you want to get into? I feel there is something else behind that question. But again, I agree. I don't really see it very commonly. It's not like you take a taster week in anesthetics and to figure out if that's going to be like a career for you. You just go into a role and you get paid for it.
Sometimes, I don't see this often, but sometimes you might have the opportunity to work for a company, paid work for a specific period of time. That might be part of your interview process, like you're literally paid for like a few weeks. Or another way to do a taster, and this is another way into a company, is to, again, be a solopreneur, do some consulting work, and so work on a project with a company. That is the best taster, because you're not just doing a kind of artificial, I'm just going to sit and watch people. You're actually working in a practical way with a company. And that's how a lot of people get jobs, actually, through consulting. Consulting being you come into a company and you do some stuff for them, basically. So leveraging your brand as a doctor, one of the most important parts of this, besides the 3 W's, obviously. So let's start with a case study. James, we did a podcast actually with this guy. James is an emergency medical consultant, and he's starting up his own business, teaching BA and ALS to organizations. Obviously, companies that do this, very common. So what are his unique selling points that can help him stand out when he has conversations with potential clients? So I want you to just, again, write in the chat box, what are his unique selling points as a doctor providing an ALS or BLS education service or consulting service to institutions? give you a few seconds. Have you got any thoughts, Ola?
I mean, he's got high credibility already by the virtue of his background being a consultant. He's highly experienced. He brings a high level of leadership and communication skills to this role, so that those in themselves stand him out as a unique selling points.
Absolutely, and I think that's echoed by some of the people here today, doctors here today. So highly credible and experienced. He's an emergency medicine consultant. He's suited for the role. He probably knows the local needs. Yes, that's a good one. It's a good one. Hands-on emergency medicine experience, credibility, his network, absolutely. His experience. So great points, great points. So doctors are great assets to any company, regardless of the sector. We need to remember that. Doctors are great assets to companies, regardless of the sector. Especially if you are starting a business, running your own business, part of a wider business, you are an asset just by the fact that you are a doctor and your inherent skill set. So as a solopreneur, talked about having that healthcare expertise at a senior leadership level, being credible, reliable, qualified, and regulated. So we come from a regulated background, so we tend to be quite trustworthy in what we do just by nature, right? We're not going to screw anyone else over because we have fear of GMC and bodies, but we also have our ethics, right? We have our ethical boundaries too. We talked about high quality network as well. So being doctors, we know other great people, and then the influence that we have as doctors because of all of those things. And you can use that as a solopreneur, and you can also use that as an employee if you're applying for a job. So, you know, a lot of the clients we work with say we like doctors in non-medical roles because they work well in teams and alone. So very flexible in the way they work. They have very high analytical and decision-making capacity, especially versus lawyers, apparently. So lawyers get lost in the detail because they're lawyers. But us, we just get on with it. We analyze quickly, you know, you get the diagnosis or differential, and then you make decisions and you run with it, right? So that can be transferred to any kind of sector. I did a podcast with a doctor who used to be a surgeon called Joanna, and she went into interior design, and she had to do a diploma qualification, and then within a year or so of working at a design firm, she was promoted to a leadership position within a year, which is really quick. So again, you know, it's a creative industry, but it was recognized that she just got on with things and used her initiative and did really well. So yeah, and practical healthcare expertise. So beyond the actual healthcare bit, the technical knowledge of healthcare, there's the practical elements of like audits, QI, research, governance that can be applied to a lot of other sectors. And obviously, as doctors, we're used to speaking with authority. That's a really important part of that, because people, you know, a lot of these sectors, they need you to buy in. They need you to sell a service, even as a doctor, but people need to buy into what you're saying, right? Whether you're in a team or whether you're selling to a client or a customer. So it's really important that you recognize some of the benefits and leverage them. We talked about transferable skills, quick to learn, great return on investment. Doctors are expensive. They are very expensive, as we command a higher salary, non-medical and medical, but the return on investment is huge. So we're 100% worth what we're paid and more. And we talked about the leadership skills. So I actually covered this before, and personal branding is a completely another masterclass that I'm not going to do now, right? But you can start by using your clarity statement and leveraging yourself as a doctor to start building it. So just to be clear, personal branding does not mean twerking on social media. It doesn't have to mean any of those things that you don't want to do. It just means showing up consistently and being known for what you do, right? And again, in order to do that, you need to be clear on the 3 W's and your clarity statement. I use Oprah as an example because, you know, when I say the word Oprah, you know what Oprah does, right? And why? Because she was doing it for decades. She was showing up on daytime TV pretty much every day, globally, for decades, and people knew what they got when they turned on to see Oprah, right? And so Ola, I was going to ask this question to Ola, how would you describe my personal branding?
Right, I did not expect that. Precise, persistent, high achieving, and very ambitious.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We looked at other doctors who've really leveraged their doctor brand. So Rupi, having been to Medic Footprints events in the past, inspired to turn some of his backstory challenges to a lucrative international brand. No stethoscope required. He's everywhere. He's great. He's really invested in nutritional and lifestyle medicine, and he's used it as, because at the end of the day, he could have just been another chef. He could have just been another one of these. There's plenty of them. It's a really crowded market, but he really leveraged what he's passionate about, and he leveraged being a doctor, and he continues to do so. Nikki Ramskill she's a GP who used being a doctor, a medical brand, by actually transforming that to finances for women. So that's a very specific niche, which she is doing really well at. And as a result, she's very well known on media and has made like a lot of TV appearances. And again, came from the Medic Footprints community. So I know we've covered a lot, and I hope you haven't been overwhelmed, but just to recap, that this is what we've covered so far. The core reasons why doctors tend to fail themselves are stemming from burnout, lack of clarity and focus, lack of knowledge on selling. Obviously, what selling is and what selling means. Remember, it's about persuading someone for the merits of you. If you do not know you, other people will not know you. And remember, it is a transaction, unfortunately, when it comes to jobs and selling your services. So exchange for money. So it's essential that if you want to get the opportunity you want, you need to look at the 3 W's and apply that to all of the selling vehicles, and use that as the foundation, and leverage your doctor brand as an asset, and be ultra curious with any opportunity that you're going for, because the questions means that you're interested, and that will help you stand out in your interview. And being persistent at it. Sometimes companies will just go for you because you've been around, you've been nabbing them. And so when something does come up, they're like, oh, what about that person that's been like nicely reminding us again and again and again and again, because they're our greatest fans. That is the way that people get jobs. Reality is that is the way. So this is a time where I want you to rewatch this and take some of what we've learned today and what I've talked about today, and reflect and put some of this into action. So I really want to hear from you, like, what are you looking to take action on moving forward? At the end of the day, you can achieve what you want to achieve with your own path, or you can join our path, because the best journeys are with friends, with people in your own tribe. And this can help you get the job you want, build your high quality network, get great clients that you love working with, learn insider tips, learn from other people's mistakes. You don't have to make them as well, because I see doctors making the same mistake. On one-to-ones, every single doctor, it's like very, very similar one-to-ones. Every single one has very, very similar challenges. If you got them all in the same room, like we do in our roundtables, you realize actually how these shared challenges, you can learn from each other's challenges and actually spearhead each other on. And so it's also a great forum for innovation when you work together with other people, and greatly increases your chances of success, and quicker than you would do on your own. So before we close off, I want to hear any more Q's and A's. This is your time to ask any further questions that we have not covered in this time. And also, I would love to ask you to name one action that you're going to take towards improving selling yourself. So specifically on the selling, because that is the key for you to move forward in your career, in your sustainable career. So one action. Any more Q's and A's, put them in the Q&A box. And one action. So one action that I am going to take in investing in my career, because selling myself is something that hasn't happened overnight. It's taken years, and I'm still working on it, hence this presentation. But one of the things that I'm going to be working on is, I think, just kind of re-clarifying who I am. As you know, I've really struggled with my identity as an occupational health physician and an entrepreneur. I think I need more clarity on how I present myself sometimes. But I think one of the things I'm going to be looking at is my clarity statement. So some people are saying they're going to work on personal branding. Awesome. That again is a completely other masterclass that we will be running, I promise you. Check what Google says about me and change it to reflect my clarity statement. Yes, the thing is, like, there's some, like, obviously it depends on the websites that are talking about you on Google. There are some things you can change, there's some things that you can influence. And sometimes when you find something that's negative about you, what you need to do is like get a site, preferably your own site, and search engine optimize the hell out of it so that it supersedes the site that's talking negatively about you and pushes it down the rankings, right? So yeah, take the time to clarify my offer statement, be specific about who I am targeting, and work on my clarity statement. Brilliant. I'm so glad that that is one of the key take homes that we were sharing today, because at the end of the day, yes, you can spend a lot of time on your LinkedIn. Yes, you can spend a lot of time on your CV. And yes, you can work on your interview skills. Those things do help. They will help you get there, but it won't be the quickest way to get you there. It's all about really starting with yourself. That's 100%. Please work on you and be clear on who you are. As I said, a lot of us haven't really had the time to reconnect with ourselves from everything that we've done. So one final question from Anil. In pharma, hiring managers are often medics. Yes, and therefore it can sometimes be difficult to showcase and highlight achievements and your USP, especially if this is deemed generic by another medic. Any advice on how to sell yourself to other medics in the industry? To be honest, it's no different. Medics are people at the end of the day. They know what you've been through because they've been through it themselves. But yet they're still expecting you to be clear beyond your standard medical CV as to what value you have to offer. And everything I've covered in today's masterclass is essentially what they are looking for, right? So it doesn't matter if they're medics, it doesn't matter if they're non-medics, they're still all looking for the same thing. Remember, once the medics have got into these companies, they become part of the culture, they start to think like the people around them, they're still looking for the same things. They had to do the same thing themselves, they had to go through that process, so they understand, and they know that the doctors that made it are the ones that learned how to sell themselves well in industry. Hopefully that answers your question, Anna. Probably wouldn't have been the answer that you may have wanted, but I hope that answered your question. Viga, so if you had to start a business as a solopreneur and you're just starting out, how do you price yourself? That is another masterclass in itself, Viga. That is 100% another masterclass. And it's really hard, but it is totally doable. And just in summary, again, we were talking about sustainable careers and working as a solopreneur. One of the things I'm 100% behind is premium pricing. Cheap and low value pricing is great if you've got like a company that's for everyone and you're not a solopreneur. But if you are a solopreneur and you want a sustainable career, premium pricing and niching. And then you set your price kind of based on what the market is, but also about your positioning and again, being able to sell yourself and being very clear on the service that you're offering and the value that you're giving to your clients and how you can transform, give them something transformational and really hit their pain points. And so this is why it's so important to choose a niche audience where you know their pain points, you know their struggles, because once you have an offer for them, they will buy that, but they won't be thinking so much about the money because the return on investment will be clear for them. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? We've hit time. Any final thoughts, Ola?
Just a comment further on what you've mentioned in answering Vega's question is it's not about the price, it's about the value that you deliver. And when you're clear on it, just like you said, people will pay the price. But think about it in terms of how many clients do you want to work with in a month? How much do you want to have in a month? 6-figure income, 7-figure income, and make your pricing. The sky is your limit.
Absolutely. Make sure you create your career and your business around you, not the other way. I remember very briefly, someone saying, right, I'm going to make like, if I haven't done 50 sales calls in a day, then I haven't been working. And I thought, what an idiot. Who has time to make 50 sales calls in a day on their own? it sounds like that you're not being very specific as to who you're selling to, and you're not very good at sales. So you wouldn't need to make 50 sales calls in a day if you were good at selling, right? Because like, you just don't need to do that. So it is about creating a process, systems and everything around you that is sustainable, that you love doing, that you can keep on doing. You might want to say, I'm going to have 2 clients in a year. And then you're going to work out how much money do I want to earn from those 2 clients in a year, right? And then that's how you set your goals, right? And how much are people willing to pay for this? Or the clients that I want to serve, how much are they going to pay for this? Or how can I communicate the transformational value through the pricing? Values-based pricing. It's a whole masterclass and more. But hopefully you'll join us when we do that. Anyway, thank you so much again, everyone. We will send you an email with a few more details, and please give us your feedback, because that is an essential part of us doing better and serving you. Anyway, have a great evening, and thank you so much, and happy selling. Bye, everybody.
Bye.